Hey guys, what's going on? It's Bill and Dave from BetSome.com. Just coming at you with basically our first podcast.
Yep, we've had a few fast casts so far, but this is going to be our first podcast for BetSome, and we're just going to talk about, some of our sports picks this week, some of the games coming up, our daily fantasy lineups, and a few other things as well. Maybe we should start off with a sweat that you had last night on DraftKings.
Yep.
If you'd like to discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the breakdown was pretty simple. It was, I got drafted into, I picked one of those tournaments, the MTTs over in, DraftKings, and I picked the one that was a Thursday game, and it was two games, so there wasn't a lot of players to actually pick from.
You picked the Monday night and Thursday night game, right? So you could only pick players from the Monday night football game and the Thursday night football game. So 4 teams, not like 9 or 16 teams or whatever, or 16 games. That you usually can pick from.
Right, exactly.
Smaller amount.
Smaller amount. It's definitely tougher. I mean, there's 150,000 entries into it, 153,000 entries, whatever it is. So I mean, it's hard. So going into the Thursday game, Monday, my differential, my pick was probably Detroit. I mean, it was definitely Detroit.
Their defense, right?
Their defense.
So why was that such a? I mean, you at the end of that tournament, you stood to win a lot of money, going into the third and fourth quarter, and you're saying Detroit's defense was a big reason why.
Yeah.
But why exactly is that? Not just because they did so well, right?
Right. Well, because it was a 4% pick from the rest of the field. So just that alone gave me the opportunity or possibility that I could, probably come out on top.
So less than 1 out of 20 people you're playing against picked that pick, and they happen to do the best.
Right. Exactly.
So that immediately put you in contention for money.
Yep. It set me on a nice path, especially because I still had 5 players left. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So you got 9 going into it. I had Detroit and 2 other guys who did decent, 2 on Seattle, and then Graham, who didn't do so well, but none of the tight ends, ended up doing well anyway. But anyway, so going into Thursday night, I had Hasselbeck, what the hell is his name?
Well, I know you had Hasselbeck and
Foster.
You had Arian Foster, but you had Hasselbeck and Moncrief. That was your stack.
Moncrief.
Quarterback receiver stack of Moncrief, and that was where it took a turn for the worse.
Yeah. Moncrief just basically had the worst game of his life. Just decided to just stroll around the field, apparently. But whatever. Either way, I mean, the bottom line is it was close. I mean, it was a sweat.
You were less than 20 points from the guy who won the $40,000 or $50,000 top prize for a $3 buy-in.
Right, one guy away.
And
Johnson,
you had Andre Johnson
who just blew
instead
up.
of Moncrief, which was the Indianapolis receiver, who is worth noting was playing against his former team from last year. And for some reason in the NFL, those players playing against their former team coming home, they seem to put up a lot of points, whether it's the coach or them or the quarterback. But So it was literally the difference of Andre Johnson or Moncrief for about $40,000-$50,000. That's a sick part of this game.
Yeah. It really was. I mean, it was fun watching, we're all there just drinking beers, just watching,
Screaming and
yelling. Either way, I don't know, it was a good time.
It was a good time. And I think what I took from that the most was, I mean, obviously it's good to pick pick players or team defenses in this case that not a lot of people pick, but especially in these Monday and Thursday games and kind of these 1-game or 2-game competitions, because you have to differentiate somewhere.
Yeah.
Because everyone's picking the same players because there's not that many players to pick. It's not like there's 30 teams to pick you from. There's 4.
Right.
So you're going to end up playing a lot of players that everyone else plays, and you have to differentiate yourself somewhere. So,
you got to pick
team defense is a good place to do it too.
Yeah, you got to pick out of the box basically. In one of your lineups, you got to
really, 1 or 2 10% or less pick. And you had Hasselbeck, who was 8% pick.
Yeah.
And he got you 16 or 20.
Yeah, I mean he did all right.
So he was good for 16 or 8%.
Yeah, he was definitely. I think those two were the most. I think Hoyer got 1% picked, and of course he did the greatest game of all time for him. at 28 points or 29 points or something like that.
Well,
but
Bill here won about $50 on that $3 buy-in, or I don't know how much he won, something like that, right?
Yeah. I mean,
the winner won $50,000, and the winner had the same lineup as him, except he had Andre Johnson and Bill had Dante Moncrief. And up to this point, Andre Johnson hadn't had a catch in 2 straight games, and Moncrief was playing well. But Hasselbeck comes in, shakes things up a little. Andre just has himself a game, and that was the only difference between $50 and $50,000. That was it was really disappointing. And,
it was.
But it was fun to sweat, and you just keep trying, and you're gonna get there at one of these points.
That's what it's all about, man. It's all about the sweat.
So what did you do after? I saw you immediately get on the DraftKings app. So did you fire in some more lineups?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I just took the rest. Whatever I made,
you harnessed that fury and put them into the best 30 lineups of your life?
Yeah, basically, put them into, some more lineups because, I got excited for next week. Mm-hmm. That's just, if you're really, I mean, this is a perfect, obviously when I talk to anybody outside who doesn't really know fantasy football, and I try to explain this to them, the best way I can put it is, it's like when we used to collect baseball cards or football cards. And, how exciting it was to open up that package and look at the stats of the players and trade the cards and do whatever. This is an online version for that, combined with online poker, combined with, you get to see these, as you put it, like these gladiators basically go into this and compete.
The best of the physical athletes.
The best of the best.
In the world.
And a chance to win $1 million or $500,000 or $300,000 or even if it's
$300.
Yeah, whatever it is. I mean,
and you don't have to risk that much. That's what's cool about this form of gambling on sports is that you could risk $1 or $5 or $10 and win life-changing money. I mean, they're long shots, but they really make the games so much fun to watch. Yeah. And a majority of the time, you minimum cash to get your money back. You might win a little or lose a little here or there. So it's pretty. It's a great way to gamble if you don't know the sports that well, and it's a great way to gamble if you're not trying to risk a ton of money, and you're just trying to have a little fun, put a little action on the game, make them exciting, and possibly win a boatload of money. So, I mean, I love daily fantasy. I got the bug. I'm in.
Yeah.
So I'm hooked.
I'm definitely hooked too, and honestly, like I really did not know a lot about football 2 years ago or a year ago.
We would always play fantasy. You love gambling, but not too much sports betting.
No, really not.
But this really took you.
Yeah, I mean that kind of threw me for a loop. Once that came out and I played the first time, it was like how simple it was, and I think the first time I played, I won something, and I was like, all right, that's it. I'm
done. They got another one.
Yeah, and then I was researching and whatever. But, I mean, my point is, anybody can do this. This isn't like, I don't know anything about football. I didn't either. Mm-hmm. It's not,
And there's tons of websites out there, including ours, BetSome.com, that you can go to for resources to give you, an edge on your competition, because this is a beatable game, daily fantasy sports, but you do have to do your homework. And if you don't have time, then you got a lot of people out there doing homework for you, delivering it for you. Certain people charge, certain people don't. There's also great tools out there. We were mentioning Fantasy Cruncher. We use it sometimes. There's a few tools that are being developed right now.
Fantasy Pros is out there. It's a
relatively young industry, so we're going to keep seeing more of these things develop. I mean, there's a ton of money in this industry right now being invested in it, and so you should see some more of these tools and resources out there. So don't be afraid if you don't know the sport too well. Just get in there. I mean, it's fun as hell,
Yeah, definitely.
So speaking of daily fantasy, who are some of the guys you have in like the majority of your lineups this week? Who are some of your core players?
Man, I mean, I would say quarterback wise, I would say Phillip Rivers.
Now, you told me an interesting stat I didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, he's I couldn't believe it either. Actually, he is right now he's leading the NFL in yards.
Yeah.
And throwing yards basically.
Yeah.
and which was a shock to me. But obviously, Brady, he had this bye, so we'll see what happens. But either way, I mean, I was if you were to ask me that and I didn't know,
you asked me and I didn't know.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have guessed him.
But he's a solid player. I mean, if you look back, on his stats, I mean, he's a solid player.
Yeah,
he's a solid in that position. Running backs, Charles. I mean, he's home. He's a beast.
I love him this week.
Against what? Against Chicago.
Against Chicago at home, and he's 7,800. He's the second most expensive running back this week. But if you're going to pay for someone, there is not anyone more of a safe play with a high ceiling than him, especially because he gets so many receptions. Because Alex Smith really likes to throw into the flat.
Yep.
So I love him too. He's going to be in a third of my lineups.
Yeah, second running back. I think this is something that you kind of turned me on to, which is Forrester. I like what he's home too, right? Baltimore's home.
Oh, Forsett,
sorry, not Forrester.
Yeah, no, Forsett's home, and he's going to have the game of his life, I think. I mean, we all talked about him earlier this season, like this was going to be his year.
Yeah.
But so far, I think
not so impressive.
Not really. He hasn't done bad, but he hasn't had an impressive game yet. And I think this is the game he has that. It's week 5. Baltimore finally got a win.
It's the perfect storm for him.
And they're playing at home against, is it the Browns? I think the Browns are playing. Yeah, they're playing at home against Cleveland. They should pound the ball to him. Their offensive coordinator likes to throw to the running back, so he should get receptions, although he hasn't gotten that many this year so far.
Steve Smith's out, right?
Steve Smith Sr.'s out, so that just adds to his value right there. So, and he's 5,800, which is really cheap for a tier 2, possible tier 1 this week running back.
It's a great value.
Great value.
All right, so we got those two. Wide receivers, I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so many players that are going to score decent points at the wide receiver that you just really can't go wrong. I mean, but who knows? I have no idea. It's just.
I've been going wide receiver heavy this season and spending on them and putting them in my flex and gambling on running back. But this week will be the exact opposite. I'm going to go pretty running back heavy because there's about 4 or 5 home backs against weak teams that I like.
Yep.
Including Lacey and including Freeman.
Lacey, another home guy. Too.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put those 4 running backs that we talked about into a lot of my lineups, like a lot of them, and then I'm gonna kind of gamble on receiver and pick and choose. Probably gonna pick some of those cheap away receivers, like we talked about Pierre Garçon. Now that he's probable, he was upgraded from questionable to probable. So. Yep. They should fall behind to Atlanta, and be forced to throw.
Yep.
And he's cheap as hell, so I like him. So I'll be putting him and players like him.
Yeah, definitely. Who do you like for a stack? When we talk about quarterback stacked with a tight end.
Well, so you should. So for those of you out there who don't know what a stack is, that's when you pick a quarterback and a receiver from the same team, or a quarterback and a tight end from the same team. Simply because if the quarterback scores a lot of points. He's going to be throwing touchdowns the vast majority of the time, and that means a receiver is going to get most of those points. So you really want to just get a nice stack in there. I think also there's the reverse stack where you put in a receiver against that stack because you think it's going to be a shootout or that team will fall behind and be forced to throw the ball late in the game and get a lot of garbage points to the receiver because you get a point every time they catch the ball, point per reception. So as far as stacks this week, I really like my favorite this week is Bradford and Jordan Matthews. I haven't picked either of them all year.
Yep.
I have not even really paid attention to the Eagles much because they just seemed in disarray, like they're trying to figure things out. I think they're starting to look a little bit better. Bradford's starting to get his confidence up.
Starting to pull together.
Yeah, and I don't know if DeMarco Murray hurt or is he playing? He's playing, right?
He's healthy.
So, yeah, Bradford had 3 touchdowns last week, and I also think that Al Gahor seems like he's absent from that team. So Jordan Matthews looks like he's the target right now, and I also think that game is going to be a shootout. So, and they're both cheap, so you can get that stack right there for. And still be able to afford those top running backs we talked about.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of gambling there and not picking like a Brady Gronk.
Right.
So that's my favorite stack. There's a few that I'll do.
Yeah.
I might do the Peyton Emmanuel Sanders. I really like Emmanuel
Yeah.
Sanders this week. He's cheaper than Demaryius Thomas. He has about the same production.
They're away at Oakland, right?
Yeah, they're away at Oakland. It should be a tough game, but I think Emmanuel Sanders is going to have a big one. But he's been kind of quiet for a week or two, and I feel like that's how it goes with the Broncos. Peyton goes for one or two of them for a couple weeks, and then the other one, and then I don't know. Maybe it could be nothing to that, but I just think it's Emmanuel's week. I mean, you can't go wrong with picking either him or Demaryius.
Sure. Yeah.
But he's $800 cheaper than Demaryius.
Yeah.
So, and he's got the same production, and I might pick Peyton and Emmanuel, but I really like Bradford and Jordan Matthews. So I'll put them in a quarter of my lineups this week and just roll with it. How about you?
As far as again, I don't know. I mean, I like Carson Palmer with
Fitzgerald. Nice. Yeah, that's been a good one for you all year.
It has. I like. Palmer he's a consistent player, which I like. Like if you look at the points, he's just really 22, 21, right in that range almost every single week. You know, and now he's away. They're away at where the hell are they at? They're at Lions.
Yeah, they're at Detroit.
Yeah, they're at Detroit. I just think again, I think they're going to have a decent points. I think they're going to throw him up, and I think Fitzgerald is they're going to connect.
Yeah, and if Detroit somehow does play well that game, I mean, we're waiting for that for 2 years. But if they somehow jump off to a big lead at home, like they're capable of but never seem to do, then Carson Palmer and Larry Fitzgerald are going to have to show some production. So I do like that one.
Yeah.
You know who else I like is I like Derek Carr, Amari Cooper. Yeah. Same reasons as the Eagles, or similar reasons. They're both really cheap. They're going to be low drafted.
Yep.
So you're gonna have a low percentage of people. So if they do well, you're gonna be a big favorite in the field. And I like them because they're at home against the Broncos. They're probably gonna have to play well. Latavius Murray, Derek Carr, and Amari Cooper are gonna have to put up good games to beat the Broncos, and I think they're gonna beat the Broncos this week. That divisional match, and we'll talk about that in a little bit for our picks, but that divisional match seems to be close, and Peyton's been playing a lot of close games. Yep. And I think Derek Carr and Amari Cooper are going to play up. This is their biggest game of their year so far.
Right.
So
conference game. Right?
They're cheap, low drafted, and it might be a shootout in Oakland against Peyton. So I'll put them in a few lineups too as a stack.
And usually, I think when we were talking earlier, it seemed like one of the things that you mentioned was Oakland, when they play Denver, usually.
Yeah, it's close games. They split a lot. Yeah. So in the past, and it's this way in division games. Period. I mean, the coaches know each other really well. The coaches know each other's teams. They play each other twice a year. They trade secrets within each other. They're just closer to those teams than they are to other teams. Right. And that translates onto the field and to the score at the end of the game. Is they're just closer. I mean, they know the weaknesses much better. They know how to play safe, and you just find that it's just a close game. And obviously, either one could blow out each other. More likely, Denver blows out Raiders than vice versa. Sure. But this game is going to be probably pretty close, and I think the Raiders deal Denver their first loss. But I think Denver's going to win that division. But this is good. Raiders are going to play up this game, and that's a tough place to play down there in Oakland. Yeah, I know you've been there.
I have been there. It's pretty awesome. I highly recommend everyone go down there. Yeah. But well, let's talk about the games then. Who do you like then? I mean, it seems like we're jumping into that anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
So we got Broncos at Raiders, which all right, Raiders are +5. Who do you take?
That's my chop off the hand pick of the week. I mean, I don't love any games this week. Yeah. I loved games last week, and I didn't even do too well. Right. So what's that say? But I don't really love the games this week, but there are 3 that I like. And the one I like the most is the Raiders +5 for a few reasons. But the primary one being the public is almost 80% on Denver. Yeah. And the Raiders are home, and I like betting home dogs when the publics are all over the away team. And I hate betting against Peyton Manning. Yeah. But it's just a spot where, that's just, you got to take it as a bettor. You just have to take that. That's it's just value. It's equity. It's value. It's value. You might lose, but in the long run, this is the game that the odds makers win on and the public loses on, I think.
All right. Steelers, Chargers. Chargers -3. Who do you take?
And just to go back to that other one, that game's going to be close. I just really think that Broncos-Raiders game is going to be close. But the Steelers-Chargers, the Chargers, I think, are going to win by like a touchdown or maybe 10 points.
Yeah.
I love betting against teams that travel cross-country. Me and Tom talk about that all the time. I think that it's one of the most underutilized techniques to win your betting or things that you look for is that...
It's part of your system.
It is. It's part of the system. It's like... there's all these little edges in the NFL because everyone's so talented. Unlike college where the talent is so condensed into certain universities. Right. They're just better. They could play anywhere and beat the hell out of the other team. They're just bigger, better, older, whatever. In the NFL, it's not so much like that. So there's these little edges. And when you're traveling, it's a small little edge against you. But when you're traveling across country, 3-hour time zones, 5-hour plane rides, day early arrival, less practice time, hustle and bustle, hotels and family across the nation yelling at you, whatever the case is. All those little things add up to edge for the home team.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And I think historically that really, really pans out. So I like the Chargers, and plus Rivers is playing lights out, and they're playing against the Steelers who don't even have Big Ben.
Yeah.
So
all right, I
like
that.
The Chargers by like 10 there.
Cardinals at Detroit. What are you thinking? Arizona at Detroit. Detroit's...
When I first saw this game, I liked the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And that's why I knew I should bet the Lions.
All right.
No, I when I looked at this game, I saw the Lions were +3, and I was like, damn, the Cardinals are just a better team than them. Why is that? And the Lions' offensive line is just completely injured. I mean, they have one starter from the beginning of the season.
Right.
And Arizona's got a pretty tough D. I mean, so to me, it just looks like Arizona should win that game, but Detroit... all they do is play close games. Yeah. Doesn't matter what the score is at any point, but in the fourth quarter, Stafford brings them back, keeps it close. Their defense is good, so they'll keep the score low enough for Stafford to get the green light in the fourth quarter when the coach finally says, all right, we suck. I remember now, we suck. Right. Let's let Stafford throw the ball.
Right.
And then they come back and either win or lose by in thrilling fashion by 3 points.
Right.
That, to me, is the perfect exacta line.
Yeah.
Arizona's probably going to win by exactly 3, and if you can find it at 2.5 and 3.5, you can get 20-1 if Arizona wins by exactly 3. That's probably like the bet of the friggin' week.
Yeah.
But straight up, I like the Lions +3. I mean, public is 85% on Arizona there. So.
All right, so we're gonna see you, put your money where your mouth is, basically, and parlay the 3 of these.
Yeah, I'll money line parlay them.
Oh. Shit.
I think all 3 of those are going to win outright, They'll probably pay pretty well, like 12, 15-1.
Nice.
So yeah, I'll do a little parlay on that.
All right.
We'll see if we can't. Well, I'll parlay it on Bovada.
All right. I like it. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this session. And
yeah, unless there's anything else. I mean, I think we basically have a few more picks on there for NCAA, and we have 3 or 4 more on NFL from some of our other guys here that you can go and check out. So check out BetSome.com for all that information, daily fantasy information, and everything else that you may need for your sports gambling needs. So,
all right, guys. Thanks for listening. Till next week, get out there, take some risks.